Hello there, I'm so happy to see you again in this cozy, inspiration-filled space of Simple English Daily. Let me start with a question. How many things on your want-to-learn list have been gathering dust over the years? Maybe it's that guitar you bought 2 years ago that now just sits in the corner as decoration. Maybe it's a language learning account you signed up for with such excitement on New Year's Day, but your logins can be counted on one hand. Or perhaps it's a burning desire to learn design, coding, or how to cook a restaurant-quality meal. Why do we procrastinate for so long? Most of us are trapped in a giant myth called the 10,000-hour rule. We've heard somewhere that to be good at something, you need to put in 10,000 hours of grueling practice. That's the equivalent of working full-time for 5 years. This daunting number douses the flame of your passion before it even has a chance to flicker. You think, I don't have 5 years. I have a job, a family, a million pressures. I guess I just don't have the talent. But today, I am here to tell you a different truth. The 10,000-hour rule is only for those who want to be world-class experts, those who want to compete in the Olympics or perform on Broadway. But if your goal is just to be good enough to use it, good enough to play a song for your partner, good enough to communicate while traveling, or good enough to apply it to your current job, then you don't need 10,000 hours. You only need exactly 20 hours. Yes, you heard that right. 20 hours of focused practice can take you from knowing absolutely nothing to being reasonably proficient. And if you're ready to reclaim those forgotten dreams with Anna, please take 3 seconds to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Your small clicks are a huge source of motivation for Simple English Daily to keep building a roadmap of knowledge for our community every day. Now, find a comfortable spot, take a deep breath, because your journey to mastering any skill starts right now. Before we dive into the method, we need to deal with the biggest monster standing in your way. It's not a lack of knowledge, it's emotional fear. Think back to the first time you held a paintbrush or the first time you tried to pronounce a difficult English word. You felt clumsy. You felt stupid. And our brains hate that feeling. As adults, we are used to being in control of our lives. So when we suddenly drop into a state of knowing nothing, our egos take a serious hit. That is why most people quit within the first 5 hours. In science, there is a concept called the learning curve. The beginning is always the hardest, but do you know what the interesting part is? It's also the stage where you progress the fastest. In the first 20 hours, your brain's ability to absorb information is incredible if you're moving in the right direction. You will go from completely clueless to knowing the basics at lightning speed. The only thing stopping you is impatience with yourself. I want to give you a new mindset. Learn to embrace your temporary incompetence. Imagine a toddler learning to walk. How many times does that child fall? Hundreds. But does the child ever just sit on the floor, frustrated, telling themselves, "Oh, I'm such a failure. I guess I just don't have the talent for walking"? Never. They simply get up and try again. Why do we lose that privilege as we grow up? The privilege to be wrong, to try, and to start over. To conquer the first 20 hours, you must accept that in the beginning, you will hear jarring sounds from the guitar, you will say silly English sentences, and you will draw messy lines. That is perfectly normal. It is the price you pay for future mastery. Tell yourself, I don't need to be good immediately. I just need to complete these 20 hours. When you shift your goal from being good to completing the practice time, the pressure vanishes and the door to self-learning swings wide open. Once you have a steady mindset, we move into the first technique, and the most important one for saving time: deconstructing the skill. The biggest mistake unsuccessful self-learners make is looking at a skill like a giant boulder and trying to carry the whole thing. They say, I want to learn English, or I want to learn programming. But you know what? English, or programming, is not a single skill. It's a collection of hundreds of smaller sub-skills. If you try to learn everything at once, you'll get overwhelmed and burn out immediately. The secret here is to use the 80-20 principle, Pareto. Find the 20% of the pieces that will give you 80% of the results you desire. Let me give you a real-world example. If you want to learn guitar to play and sing at parties with friends, you don't need to learn every note on the fretboard, complex music theory, or virtuoso solo techniques. The truth? Most popular songs today revolve around only 4 or 5 basic chords. Once you master G, C, D, and M, you can play thousands of different songs. That's the 20% piece that brings 80% of the joy. The same goes for learning a new language. If you want to communicate basically while traveling, you don't need to learn tens of thousands of words like a living dictionary. Language studies show that just 500 to 1,000 of the most common words are enough to understand and express yourself in 80% of daily situations. Instead of learning vocabulary about astronomy or politics, focus on how to book a hotel, ask for directions, or order food. The process is simple. Take a piece of paper and write down the major skill you want to learn. Then, list all the small components that make it up. Finally, circle the parts that are most necessary for your current goal. The more you deconstruct, the less scary the skill becomes. You're no longer learning the guitar. You're just practicing 4 chords. You're no longer learning English. You're just learning 50 travel phrases. When the goal becomes small and specific, your brain feels no pressure, and your 20 hours of practice will fly by effectively. Once you've chosen the most important pieces to learn, we move to the next step. Learn just enough to be able to recognize your own mistakes. Many people get stuck at this stage because they are too diligent at reading. They buy 10 textbooks, sign up for 5 online courses, and watch hundreds of YouTube videos on theory. They feel like they're progressing because they know more, but in reality, they are falling into the trap of passivity. They become knowledge collectors instead of practitioners. In the 20-hour rule, theory should only take up about 10 to 20% of the initial time. You only need to learn enough to understand what you're doing and, most importantly, to create a feedback loop. What is feedback? It's when you do something and immediately know if it's right or wrong. If you have a teacher, they provide that feedback. But when you're self-learning, you have to design that teacher for yourself. For example, if you're learning English pronunciation, don't just read the rules about mouth positioning. Use your phone to record your voice, then listen back and compare it to a native speaker's audio. The difference between those two sounds is your feedback. You'll realize, oh, I forgot the ending sound, or my tongue wasn't in the right place here. That moment when you recognize the mistake and try to fix it, that is when real learning happens. If you're learning to code, don't just copy-paste from a book. Try writing a snippet and running it. If the screen flashes a red error, don't be afraid. That is the best kind of feedback. You'll figure out why it's broken, fix it, and keep going until it works. My advice for this part is, don't wait until you're good at theory to start practicing. Start as soon as you have the basic concept. Don't pick too many materials. Choose one or two sources that are easiest to understand, learn the core points quickly, and jump into practice immediately. Turn learning into a dialogue between you and the skill. You try, the skill answers, you adjust, you try again. The more feedback loops you create in these 20 hours, the more incredibly fast you will progress. Remember, we learn to do, not just to know. Now, let's be honest for a moment. Even if you've deconstructed the skill, even if you have the best materials in the world, what usually makes you give up? It's because starting is just too hard. We live in an era of distraction. Smartphones, social media notifications, an email from the boss, or even just not being able to find a pencil to draw. These are all practice barriers. Our brains are naturally lazy. They will always find every excuse to return to the comfort zone, like scrolling TikTok or watching a movie, instead of exerting effort to learn something new. Therefore, the secret to step 3 is, make starting as easy as possible, and make distraction as difficult as possible. First, let's talk about physical barriers. If you want to practice guitar, don't keep it in its case tucked deep under the bed. Every time you want to practice, you have to lean down, pull it out, unzip the bag. Those few steps alone are enough to shake your willpower. Instead, take it out and put it on a stand right in the middle of your living room, where you can just walk by, pick it up, and play instantly. If you want to learn a language, keep your notebook and pen ready on your desk. Prepare everything so that when it's time to practice, you don't waste a single second searching for tools. Next are the technological barriers. This is the number one enemy of self-learning. You intend to sit down for 45 minutes, but a Facebook notification pops up, and suddenly 30 minutes have vanished into thin air. For these 20 hours of practice, turn yourself into an oasis. Turn off the Wi-Fi if unnecessary, leave your phone in another room, or use apps that block notifications. You need to create an environment where you and the skill you're learning are the only two entities that exist. Additionally, there is a very dangerous mental barrier, waiting for the perfect moment. You tell yourself, I'll wait until the weekend when I'm free to study for 5 hours straight, or I'll do it when I'm in the right mood. Trust me, that perfect moment will never come. The tactic here is to apply the 2-minute rule. If starting takes less than 2 minutes, do it now. Don't think about the 20 hours. Don't think about the 45 minutes. Just think about sitting at the desk and opening the book. Once you cross the threshold of starting, momentum will carry you forward. Remember, willpower is a finite resource. It depletes by the end of the day. Don't use willpower to force yourself to learn. Use your intelligence to design an environment where you can't help but learn. When barriers are eliminated, the path to your 20 hours of practice will become smooth and wide open. Finally, we come to the closing step, practice for at least 20 hours. Why is this number so important? Why not 5 or 10 hours? Because, as I mentioned at the beginning, there is a phase called the Valley of Frustration. This is the period from hour 1 to hour 5, when you feel at your worst, most clumsy, and most like giving up. 20 hours is a commitment long enough to get you past that uncomfortable threshold and start seeing the first results. Once you pass the 10-hour mark, a miracle happens. Your brain begins to form new neural connections. What was previously hard work now starts to become reflex. You no longer have to look down at the fretboard to press chords. You no longer have to translate every word in your head when speaking English. That is the greatest feeling of victory for a self-learner. But how do you complete 20 hours amidst a busy life? The secret lies in consistency and frequency, not intensity. Don't try to study for 10 hours on Sunday and then do nothing for the rest of the week. The brain learns best through repetition. The most effective way is to break down 20 hours into 45 minutes a day, consistently for 1 month. 45 minutes is only equivalent to one episode on Netflix or the time you spend mindlessly scrolling social media. Every one of us has those 45 minutes. The question is, what do we prioritize? I recommend using the Pomodoro technique. Focus completely for 25 minutes, rest for 5, and then repeat. This helps the brain avoid burnout and maintains excitement longer. During this process, track your progress. Don't judge the results by how good you are. Judge them by how many hours you've put in. Keep a calendar or a tracking app. Every day you complete your 45 minutes, mark it with a giant X. When you see a long chain of X's, you'll have a powerful psychological motivation not to break that chain. There is one truth I want you to always remember. Most people fail not because they can't learn, but because they stop too early. They stop at hour 3 or hour 5 when everything is still foggy. If you commit to yourself, no matter what happens, I will finish these 20 hours, you've already won against 90% of people out there. The first 20 hours won't make you a master, but they will take you from a bystander to someone who is actually playing the game. And from that 20-hour milestone, if you love it, you can go on to 100 hours, 1,000 hours. But without these first 20 hours, everything will forever remain just a distant dream. To close this 20-hour roadmap, I want to tell you a small story of my own. An experience that completely changed how I perceive my own limits. Not long ago, I had an intense fear of public speaking. Especially presenting in a language that wasn't my mother tongue. Every time I thought about dozens of eyes staring at me, my heart would race and my mind would go completely blank. I used to believe, I'm just not a natural speaker, I was born to work quietly with numbers and words. But then, I decided to apply the exact formula I just shared with you. I didn't set a goal to become a great orator. I only set one goal: spend exactly 20 hours learning how to present an idea. I deconstructed the skill. Instead of learning everything about public speaking, I only practiced an impactful opening, how to regulate my breath, and how to use my hands. I created my own feedback loop by setting up my phone, filming myself, and watching it over and over, blushing with embarrassment. I removed barriers by promising myself to practice for just 30 minutes every morning before work, while the rest of the world was still asleep. And you know what the best part was? By hour 15, I realized I had stopped shaking. By hour 20, I was able to stand up and deliver a smooth 10-minute presentation in front of my colleagues. I didn't become Steve Jobs after those 20 hours, but I killed the fear that had imprisoned me for all those years. The happiness of realizing I can do this was sweeter than any external praise. Self-learning is not just about adding a line to your CV or having a new party trick. Its deeper meaning is to help you realize that the world is a vast playground, and you have the right to participate in any corner you choose. You don't need anyone's permission to get better. You don't need a university degree to start learning to draw, code, or learn a new language. Every time you conquer the first 20 hours of a skill, you are upgrading your own operating system. You become more confident, more flexible, and most importantly, you no longer fear the changes of the world outside. Because you know clearly, with just 20 hours of focus, you can master anything you want. A journey of 1,000 miles always begins with the first steps, and in learning, that is the 20 hours of high focus we've just decoded together. We've traveled through a complete roadmap, from deconstructing skills to turn giant goals into manageable pieces, to learning just enough to start practicing immediately. We've also learned how to design an environment to eliminate distractions and, most importantly, the commitment to go the full 20 hours to overcome the initial clumsiness. Anna wants to ask you one final question before we say goodbye. If you could possess the foundation of a new skill starting tomorrow, which skill would you choose? Don't just keep it in your head, write it down in the comments below. This is not just a comment, it's your first commitment to yourself. I believe that inside everyone listening to these words is a vast potential waiting to be awakened. Don't let the 10,000-hour figure discourage you, and don't wait until you have time or enough talent. Start with 20 hours. Start today, right now. If you feel this video has sparked a little inspiration for you to start a new journey, please give Anna a like to spread this spirit of self-learning to more people. Don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so we can continue this journey together through many more exciting lessons. And if you have a friend who is also harboring unfinished plans, hit share and send this video to them as a word of encouragement. Thank you so much for spending your precious time listening to Anna's reflections. I wish you 20 hours of exciting practice and many wonderful discoveries about yourself. Goodbye, and see you in the next journeys of Simple English Daily.